Yeah. So we're getting to Splashville stuff. You got some extra Splashville stuff?
Do you have any more of the Splashville reports for the mayor? Did you get one of these?
Are there some, pass me those, the Splashville stuff? Somehow, oh, okay.
We'll get you.
Is there that, and then,
I missed the last two. Are you on my way?
I guess we're ready to go. We got sound okay? Everybody hear me? All right, good evening, and I'd like to welcome everybody to this regular business meeting of the Stephenville City Council here on Tuesday, December the 3rd. It's 5:30, and I'll call the meeting to order at this time. Before I begin tonight, I wanted to share with everybody something that happened about a week ago. We had a meeting with the actually it was at the Stedco annual meeting, and Congressman Williams was there, and he brought a special presentation for the city at that meeting, and this American flag was flown over the nation's capital and presented to the city in commemoration of the city of Stephenville, Texas, being named the cowboy capital of the world. And so what Congressman Williams did, and I think Ross Gage was going to maybe be here tonight. I don't see him, but what he was doing with that statement is, I guess, making sure that there was a statement at the federal level about what city in the state of Texas is truly the cowboy capital of the world. So he gave us this flag, and it's an opportunity for us to display that. And so I just wanted to share that with everybody. An appropriate gift for an appropriate designation. So good news there. All right, and with that, I'll move on into the citizens' general discussion part of the agenda. I've got trying to look through these. Okay, I've got two for this, and the first one, Mr. Boyd Wagner. And just come forward and state your name and address for the record, and okay.
Okay, my name's Boyd Wagner, live at 385 South Belknap in Stephenville. And I want to talk about curbs and gutters, and the only thing I'm doing, basically what I'm doing is just suggesting that the city council appoint a committee or somebody to study the question of what to do about curbs and gutters. And I'm not sure exactly what the current curbs and gutters regulations say. I've read them, and they're not really clear to me. They may require them everywhere, and they may require them just in subdivisions. And when you drive around town and look at them, they seem to be in miscellaneous places. And I think somebody at Planning and Zoning made the comment that we needed to have them clarified and what you say, clear to everybody. And I want to show you, I'm going to try to finish in 3 minutes. I guess I will. And I'm going to give all y'all a packet that contains these things so you can have it. What this is, in 2006, the EPA studied the question of curbs and gutters, and they concluded that the use of an engineered swell is just a grass line ditch, which we have everywhere. And the stormwater, that's basically just water, for heavy rain. And they said the use of engineered swells in place of curb and gutter should be encouraged in low and medium density residential zones where soils, slope, and so forth permit. 2007, they studied again, basically said the same thing. Grass swells, compared with conventional practices like curb and gutters, can reduce project cost and improve environmental, performance. In 2012, this, Raleigh, North Carolina studied it, they appointed a committee, and in 2011, they appointed a committee, and the committee came back in 2012 and said, you need to change our ordinances, just require them everywhere. And in two weeks ago tonight, they adopted the ordinances on November the 19th in Raleigh, North Carolina. And then EPA studied it again a year ago, basically came up with the same conclusion. And these references show where you can find those on the internet. And like I said, I'm gonna give you a packet that has all this in it, so you can find it. This is basically the report to the Raleigh, North Carolina City Council on this day. Joint report that they give these two committees. They basically say the same thing. They said that the city standards currently require curb and gutter everywhere, and they said city standards should be revised to allow alternate methods. So they're saying the same thing. I got interested in this because a friend of mine lives out there at the corner of Dale and Idella, and you know, the place was about to go in on 5 acres with 100 units. And she didn't like that, and so I got interested in it. You know, Mark came and talked to a group out there one time about curbs and gutters and annexation. When I was a lawyer in Dallas, I lived here on Meadow Road. Highland Park is down here, Northwest Highway is here, and here's North Dallas Tollway, here's Central, here's these streets going north. I went up there the other day, and they still don't have curbs and gutters on that place. They got houses that are worth $4.5 million. Now, I didn't live in a $4.5 million house.
What happened?
I had what I thought was a nice house, it's 4 bedrooms and 3 baths. Mine's gone. I'll show you a picture of what's there then. But anyway, these streets, that one has no curb and gutters. As you go north on Crescent Road, you can look to your right. These are not all lined up together, they're interspersed with some that do and some that don't. So why do you have some that do and some that don't? Well, I called the guy up there at the city and talked to him, and he said, sometimes we just let them decide among themselves, you know. And of course, you can't do without curb and gutters everywhere. It depends on kind of the water study. So anyway, that was kind of what I got there. 0. Laurinburg, North Carolina, interestingly, the city council there took up the question in September, and they talked about it, and they'd been talking about it for a while. The mayor said requiring home builders to pay for curbs and gutters is slowing growth, and businesses are overlooking us and looking elsewhere. If curb and gutter requirements were lifted, there would be more development. The city planner said we could amend the ordinance to stop that, and the city council members, one of them said, I don't think we got a problem. Another one says, curbs and gutters are just part of city life. Another one says, I like the look of curbs and gutters. And another one said, I don't like using any judgment. We just need to have them everywhere, you know. So I hope we can do better than that. I've got so really all I'm suggesting is that we do what Raleigh, North Carolina has done and what the EPA has recommended, and appoint somebody or some committee to study that. It could be possibly the Planning and Zoning Commission or anybody else, of course, if they needed to appoint somebody that was had some specialized knowledge. And you probably need some sort of an engineer to decide where you can do without those things. But if you look out in that area where we look out in Idella and Dale and so forth, they've been out there without curbs and gutters for a long time. And a lot of people don't like the looks of the curbs and gutters. I think that's like a difference between blondes and brunettes, I think, you know. And some of the other. So,
Okay. I'll tell you what, Mr. Wagner, let me just see if anybody's got any questions
Yeah,
for you,
fine.
because Cindy, the 3 minutes is come and gone.
that's
So,
fine.
any questions?
I mean, how many, 8? Well, is it 17? All right. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's basically just what I'm recommending, that you get somebody to study. That's the end of my story.
Okay.
Any questions?
Any questions?
That's all right, thanks.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I know that this is a topic that has come up in the past. I know that we've talked about it within the council, and we'll just need to take this information and discuss it and move forward from there. Any council members have any comments? Mr. Evans?
Let me just say, it's a lot of times we'll have people that'll leave early, so let me say, I think Boyd usually stay for the whole thing, but in the planning and development report in a minute, you'll hear a little report from me about the task force. Curb and gutters is an issue that's come up with a task force, and so there is some work being done on that. So, and that may be, he's suggesting we put it in some sort of committee to work on it, and that would probably be a good spot since we're already working on it. So,
Right, okay.
In the task force, okay.
Most of the council has not, I mean, we just met last night, so y'all haven't even gotten a report yet. But
Okay.
when you get it, it's in there, so.
Okay. You feel like that would be an appropriate
A good spot for
venue to
it, yeah.
investigate that?
Yeah.
Okay. Works for me.
Kenny, you were there, do you?
Yeah,
agree with that?
I mean, I think that there's definitely, that would be a way to look at the topic from both the builder and community perspective, as well as the city staff and just like the purpose of the task force, to bring that group together. Now, the recommendation may come out of that, just as Boyd has suggested, that it go to P and Z so that it works its way back.
I believe it would probably have to. if
Right,
you were
right.
changing things.
But I think instead of having two groups working on the same thing, we need to focus in one area, get consensus about what the problem is, and then go from there through the formal process, which would mean taking through the planning and zoning and back through the committee to the council. So, and let's do this. Let's leave that where it is, and then when we get to Scott's comments about the task force, I think maybe we can re-engage on the discussion about that, and it'll kind of close the loop. But I think the bottom line or the takeaway from your presentation is that, yes, we are very aware of this being an issue, and we agree that there needs to be an investigation into it to look at where to move forward for the community. Okay, I've got also in general citizens discussion, Ms. Virginia Abel.
I'm right here. I don't have anything to complain about, which is unusual. I am Virginia Abel, and I live in Stephenville. A few years back, I appeared before the council about the dance floor at the senior citizens, and I just wanted to say thank you for everything that you're doing down there. You can walk into that place. It is just tremendously night and day right now. You walk in there any time of day, and they're happy. It looks great. And I know you're not used to somebody saying thank you, but I just want to take the time out to come here and say thank you, because I know that your job is hard. You know, you've got a lot to discussions you go through, and a lot of decisions to make, and that's a hard one to make at times. And Mark Kaiser, thank you. I know we had to work really hard on that a long time ago, but I thought it was well overdue, because I know you hear a lot of complaints, and it's time somebody appreciates you. That's all.
Yep. All right, well, we'll just sit here and off for a minute and just soak that in. Thank you. And I want to, I've sat in a couple of the senior citizens board meetings recently, and I know they are equally appreciative. And, you know, Drew Wells, I know you've had an important role in that, working with Mark and the staff to pull those things together. And, you know, sometimes a little bit goes a long way to show that there is an appreciation of what's going on down there. But I tell you, Sandy that managed that is doing a phenomenal job as well, and the programs that they've got going on, and the dances and stuff. And so it's really great to see when you've got somebody that truly cares about what they're doing. So thank you for that. All right, any others for the citizens' general discussion? Okay. If not, at this time I'll move on to the Park and Recreations Advisory Board report. I don't see Carrie, but, okay. Drew?
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Will be presenting the Park and Rec Advisory Board report tonight in place of Kerry Strohmeyer, who is our chairman of that board. He couldn't be here tonight. He's at another function. I do want to recognize before we start, we have David Pica here on the park board, and I don't see anybody else. So we have David Pica here who could answer some questions if any come up. We've essentially have two things that we need to present tonight for your information and review, and then also for your consideration. One is the annual report on Splashville, and then the other one is a recommendation from the park board to amend our city park master plan. First, I'll go ahead and address the Splashville report for 2013. Well, that's not it. Well, y'all can go from your notes, and everybody in the audience, I'm sorry, just go along with us. I passed out the report that you have in front of you, and let me go down just some of the participation numbers. This information was provided to our Parks and Rec Advisory Board last month in November at their regular meeting. That first slide there we have is our general our participation numbers for this year. We had a total of 29,190 people attend the pool, and the breakdown in the legend there is how they came through general admission, the family passes, 30 visit passes, and so forth, all the way down through the twilight swim and the private party. So those are the actual numbers of how they came into the pool. And then the next slide that you can't see behind me, but on your page, is our 3-year participation history. 2013, we had 29,190. We were open 81 days, and we had to close 9 days because of weather, or had to close early because of inclement weather. Compared to 2012, 33,393, which we were open 88 days. And then 2011, we had 35,441, and we were open 85 days. And then the next couple of slides here is just a kind of a breakdown of the number of passes we sold. This year we sold 228 passes, and we broke that down into resident passes and non-resident passes in each category that we sell, from family pass, 30 visit pass, 20 visit pass, on down to 5 visit pass. And then the next bit of information here is just the breakdown of the 3-year history of our passes that we have sold. And then our 3-year program history. This is all of our AM activities. In the morning hours, we have our swim lessons, our fitness, walking, our water aerobics, those type of activities. And in the afternoon, we have just the general public swim. So in the AM hours, we had swimming lessons this year of 174 participants compared to 124 last year and 104 the year previous. Fitness walking, we have a little bit of an increase, and then water aerobics, we show a pretty good increase in that program. Then the next little bit of information is just our special event activities over the last couple of years, and that's the number of participants that have attended. We have our birthday party reservations, our private party rentals that we rent the facility out after public swim hours. That's the number of people that attended those. Then the number of school parties that we hosted as far as the number of participation, and that typically happens before we open in the summer. That's normally like the last week of May, and we facilitate several different schools. Here, the Stephenville schools, but we also handle Santo, Lipan, De Leon, all the local school communities surrounding Stephenville. And then our concession commission that we get back from our concessionaire, that stayed pretty constant over the last 3 years, a little over $7,000. The next slide, or the next information, is our staffing levels. We have all of these folks are part-time people. We have no full-time staff at the pool. We have one pool manager, then 48 lifeguards and swim instructors, 18 cashier attendants, 13 pool maintenance, for a total of 80 employees. And that's the number of employees that we had throughout the course of the summer. Now, obviously, we didn't start with 80 and we didn't end with 80, but it took 80 to get us from start to finish, because we do have some turnover throughout the summer months, because those kids will go and find employment elsewhere, and then sometimes they're just tired of blowing the whistle. So, but total staff hours, 13,345 for the summer. And of course, that's our biggest expenditure within the department. We paid out $109,000 in wages. And then the next bit on the financial breakdown, our total personnel costs were just right under 120,000. Contractual was 47,770. General services, 17,400. Machine and maintenance, a little over 13,000, for a total operating expenditures of 198,427. And we did have to purchase a capital item this year, a new requirement that was mandated to meet some ADA requirements, a chair lift, and that was $3,200. So total expenditures, everything was $201,647. And our total revenue that we brought in was $138,749. And then the last slide, or the last bit of information, is just and this is actually a 4-year breakdown. This is when we opened the pool in 2010 for the full first summer, just expenditure and revenue look for the last 4 years. So, and you can see that our, let's see here, the blue bar is the expenditure and the red is the revenue. The revenue is pretty constant. The expenditures, we're bringing those down a little bit each year as we run the pool and learn a little bit more about the efficiencies of the operations. And the last thing that I shared with the park board and in reviewing this summer's activities, there's a number of things that we're going to be looking at to try to continue to maximize our efficiencies for next year. Some of the staff training that we have to go through to meet the Red Cross requirements for our lifeguards. We have to do a couple of in-service days. We're going to look at how we can consolidate that into maybe one training. And then we're probably going to review and maybe eliminate some of our special event programs, which are the movies in the pool. We're probably going to eliminate those, and then we'll probably make a little bit quicker decision on closing the facility on bad weather days or inclement weather days, because we have a lot of days where it's overcast or it looks like it's about to rain at any minute, and we're still open and we don't have just a large number of kids in the pool. And we'll probably be a little bit more aggressive in eliminating those days, knowing that our numbers aren't there to support the operations for that day. So those are just a few of the items that we're going to look at to try to be a little bit more efficient. So that's a lot of information, and it's a little bit better if you see it. But if y'all have any questions of me, I'll be happy to answer those.
Any questions? Mr. Sveen?
The $47,000 for contractual, what kind of contracts what kind of services are those? Just a ballpark. I don't need an actual number, just an idea.
That category of expenditures for the city, that's going to be all of our, like our, let's see, the 200s. That's like our phone bill. We don't actually contract out with anybody, but that's going to be our phone bill.
Okay.
Who? Electric bill. Those
Chemicals.
Insurance and
Insurance
utilities.
fills in.
Yeah,
are the biggest
insurance, utilities, and the electric bill is the highest of all that. The chemicals, that's going to be in
Machine equipment?
the general services category,
Okay.
the next category
ones.
down.
Supplies are there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a couple questions,
Okay,
Mayor.
go ahead.
I have a question about the 3 special event nights. For the sake of the audience, we show in 2011 participation of 1,113, in 2012 participation of 831, and then this year down to 334.
Right.
Tell me about 3 special event nights, because I don't understand
The,
what it is and why there's such a decline.
right. The special event nights, we have held the movie in the pool nights. And then in previous years, last year and in 2011, we also had a little fireworks display that we did at the end of the movie. So it was like a little 4-minute firework display deal. And that was real cool, but it was expensive. And so we cut that out this year. We didn't do the firework display, but we did do the movie in the pool. And so just this year, without the fireworks, it appears that the movie in the pool may not be something we do next year.
Okay. My other question, Drew, is under staffing. Under pool maintenance, the first year there were 11 employees. The second year there were 9 employees. And the third year, which is this year, there are 13 employees.
Right.
Can you explain to me why that's bouncing around and why we're not taking the opportunity to have less employees to cut the amount that we have to subsidize?
Well, and again, we had 13 13 part-time people on staff this year to do the pool maintenance, and it's 7 days a week, and they come in at like 5 in the morning and go from 5 to 8 to clean the pool. We normally have 3 people on a rotation to vacuum the pool and to wash the deck and to hit the facility. So just to work around their schedule, and of course they don't work, it's not the same 3 kids that work 7 days a week, and it's not the same crews that work at the beginning of the summer, at the end of the summer. So what I don't show you in here is how many staff hours were spent doing maintenance functions. But the number of people there is a little bit misleading because, again, we only have 3 people doing maintenance in the morning. And it took a total of 13 people to get 3 there every morning.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm gonna tell you, as far as managing of all the departments, of all the areas that I manage, this is the most challenging because of how many people is required to handle the operations and how much it changes from the beginning of the year, our roster, and at the end of the summer, because we have people that leave and we have to go out and find another lifeguard. And finding another lifeguard is not like going out and finding another guy to weed eat, because they have to have certifications and so forth. So it's a little bit more difficult.
Okay, and speaking of lifeguards, is there any kind of a state mandate on how many have to be on duty at one time?
No, and I say no, and that may not be right, but I do recall whenever we opened up initially, we conferred with the Texas Municipal League Risk Pool Group and the American Red Cross, in which we're a part of that system in our swim lessons and so forth, and all of our lifeguards are American Red Cross certified. And then we got basically guidance from them as to how to staff the facility with, the lazy river and the bodies of water and the features that we had with the slides and so forth. So, and we do, that is one of the areas that we have basically through the years that we've been open, have realized that, hey, there's certain times of the day if it's a cloudy weather day and we only have 50, 75 kids in the pool, then we start reducing that staff load and we restructure that during the day. But when we have 300, 400 kids in the pool, it takes, I believe we have 13 actually out on the deck at one time. And then they have to go through a deal where they cycle off and have a 20-minute break every hour or so, and that we have to meet those requirements.
Thank you.
You bet.
Any other questions, Mr. Nance? Oh, Dr. Cross.
I have a question about the 3-year participation history. And I noticed that in 2011, total participation was 35,441, which works out to 417 attending a day. It declines each year. 2013, 29,190 or 360 per day, and I was wondering, is this statistically significant? Is there a reason for the decline? Could it have to do with weather patterns, or what explanation is there, if any?
Well, there could be a little bit of all those things. I know last year, 2012, we were open more days, and it seemed to be 100 degrees in May and stayed 100 degrees until November last year. And so that affected some of the numbers. But in 2011, I want to think the total number of participation is we had more school parties at the beginning of the year because we were stacked up and we were just we're open 4 more days compared to this year. So, but I think that it was the pool parties that we had at the preseason or before the season opened. Or school parties, not pool parties.
Any other questions?
How many hours is that pool open a day? I don't know, it changed because of the weather and stuff, but about 10 hours?
Well, the morning hours were open from 7 or 8 a.m. with our first fitness walking classes and not Zumba, but
Yeah.
whatever that is, the water aerobics. And then the swimming lessons go through 11 or 11:30 that morning. So that's 4 hours or so. And then the afternoon, we open at 1 o'clock through 7 o'clock. And then, except for on Sunday. Sunday, we're open, we close at 6 p.m.
Okay, so basically 12 hours a day, except for Sundays.
That's about right. And that's assuming, that's with no private parties at the end of the regular open session. Yeah.
I have one more question, Mayor,
Okay.
if I may. Drew, are you familiar with the water park that Eastland, City of Eastland has up there? Have you seen it, been there? I haven't. But I have heard that moms are still taking their kids up there because it's better than ours. Why is it, why do I hear that?
I don't know. I guess you need to go find one of those moms and ask her. Because I don't, but actually, when we were discussing this pool, the design of the pool, Eastland was one of the places that we contacted to see, because that was fairly new back then. And and they had a traditional pool like we did, and went to a more of a new modern type facility. And the first thing that they told us was it wasn't big enough day one when it was opened. And our pool is considerably bigger in water surface area than theirs, but their pool wasn't big enough. But I don't know what
I guess I'll
what
have to
moms
ask
you're
the
talking
moms
to.
then.
Yeah, you need to,
Okay, thank you.
you bet.
Any other questions?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Nix?
Drew, now that you've got 3 years of full history, as far as the design and the equipment and operation and maintenance and those issues that we all worked on diligently, and I want to thank the park board for their work on that and their continued work. Are you satisfied with it? Did we design and provide something that's functional and easy to maintain as much as possible?
Yeah, oh, yes. I mean, as far as the operations of the equipment and making sure that the water is safe and clear and circulated properly, all those mechanical systems are, there's no comparison to what our old system, what our old pool was. So from that standpoint, it's just a lot better to manage as far as operations. And then there's a few things that we have realized after it's been open, that if we'd have known way back when we designed it, we would have changed some things, like the split slide decks, what that creates as far as challenges for us to staff it. because, you know, we got a 8-foot deck and a 16-foot deck, and you got to control when those kids go down, so they're both not coming down into the same, into the pool at the same time. And if we'd have, you know, if we would have thought about that, we'd have had one level, because that would have eased up on our staffing level some. But for the most part, it's been pretty positive.
And just out of curiosity, the last full year of operation that our old pool ran, do you know the numbers from that?
We were in the single digits as far as participation numbers, and I want to say it's like the mid-single digit number, 4,000 to 6,000 as far as the number of total kids. And back then, I believe our admission charge was 50 cents or something. And now it's, you know, $5.
We've seen a significant increase in use and the service provided for the community then. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions before I ask you one or two, just real quickly? I don't want to belabor this, but I want to, you know, it's good to see how you have, if you look at the total hours, and Drew, I appreciate what y'all have done to try to manage the staffing. You've decreased by 800 hours the total staff payroll, which to me is an indication that y'all taking a hard look at how are we being as efficient as possible out there with that. And I think that's great. I'm curious to know, and you don't have to answer it tonight, but we're basically running at a delta of about $70,000 a year to operate Splashville. And we're providing access to between, you know, on average, if you take the 3-year average, about 30,000 participants a year. Is that what it should be? Or should we strive for 40,000 a year, you know, given what the capacity of the pool is? So that's one question. What should our goal be? And the second is, what should the fee be to break even? Or what would it have to be to break even? So if we assumed a best case scenario of, hey, the pool was designed to have 500 kids a day, and so let's assume we get 85% of that number. I mean, do you already know that, or is that something we could look at?
Yeah, it's just, they're making a lot of assumptions, because there is, between 2011 and 2013, we did make an increase in the fee structure, and that may have played a part of maybe some of our numbers. And that's hard to really nail down and quantify.
Well, it looked like, I mean, you did a good job of holding the revenue line somewhat constant. So,
Right.
Yeah.
But our participation numbers dropped down.
Right.
So we had fewer people paying more to keep that revenue line pretty constant. And so I don't know, you know, if in fact, if we were to raise the revenue, the admission charge $1, how that, you know, would we have 25,000 people instead of 30,000?
Yeah,
I
and
don't
I'm not
know.
asking for you to try to predict
Right.
what people's opinions are. I'm just asking you that what would it have to be to break even? That's my only question. You know, what's the pool design for capacity per day? And then what would the fee have to be to break even? Just so we can see what it is and then, you know, go from there. I'm not suggesting that we change the fee, but I think it's important for us to know what would it cost for it to pay for itself.
Right.
So that's
Sure.
the only question. Okay?
Okay.
All right, so I guess we can consider, or do you have more?
Oh, no, that was it on the pool, unless
Okay.
there was
All right.
any other questions.
All right,
Do we have to accept the
We normally do. We normally do.
We do?
Yes.
well, but you got more report to give, right?
Yes,
Okay,
which this is going to require some action. All right.
okay, so go ahead.
Okay, the next item, and this is in your agenda packet. The park board has been working on a request from some citizens about a disc golf course. And just a brief little history, we went through or updated our city park master plan a couple of years ago, and we hired Schrickle Rollins and Associates to help us do that. And that plan that was adopted by the park board and then also approved by this body. is in your packet. When we went through that process, we discussed several things, several programs and activities and so forth. And one of those was the disc golf course. And at that time, the park board felt that it was an activity that would not be best suited to be located within the city park, but that could maybe go into some other city-owned or some other, park-owned facility in town. Well, since then, we've had a group come back to us and have inquired about us revisiting that situation. And so we've met with them on several occasions, the park board, and we actually got the group who designed the Weatherford disc golf course to come down and take a look at the Stephenville City Park to see if it was even feasible to have such a facility within the park. And they came down and met on several weekends with us. And in fact, Dave Peak of Park Board met with us down there, and with Sanford Leahy with Rickle Rollins, just to look over what they had suggested. And through that process, we've determined that yes, we could facilitate a disc golf course within the city park right now. And then the park board, having gone through this process over the last 6 months or so, their recommendation is that we go ahead and move forward with this idea and amend the city park master plan to reflect that, and then we can proceed with the installation of this disc golf course. And then throughout that process, there was two caveats, I guess, that we discussed. And that the park board were unanimous and adamant about, was that one, the introduction of this disc golf course would not displace any future improvement that's already shown on this master plan. And if you'll look on your diagram there, you can see several lines that go across future buildings that are currently not there, or a pond or a road or a parking lot. So whenever the point in time comes that we actually build that improvement, that we modify the disc golf course to fit, because the disc golf course would not take priority over what's currently in our master plan. That was the first caveat. And the second condition was that we would monitor the usage of the disc play, and just to ensure that we didn't have any conflicts with park patrons and how it's currently being used. And as long as there wasn't any fist fights down there over the weekend about a Frisbee hitting somebody upside the head, then we would be okay. And then, but if there were to be any conflicts, then we would, we'd be pretty quick to correct that, the layout, or remove it altogether. So, and then just from a practical standpoint, as far as additional maintenance that would be required of us and what we're currently doing, it would not be really anything additional. We're already pretty much mowing and maintaining this area, so we wouldn't be looking at any additional, heartburn as far as taking care of this new activity. So,
Does
Any
Tarleton
questions?
does
Go
Tarleton have a disc?
no, and we have worked with them, their intramural recreation staff, because it is a desire for them, but they're a little bit restricted because of the campus. And they do put up, I think, some temporary baskets or holes,
thought I
but
saw
it's
some.
it's not a permanent situation. And so they put them up and they take them down, and they're just kind of hamstrung on their land. And
Basically, what kind of population, age group wise, is whatever we use the disc golf course?
Well, now, there's a circuit of these facilities more in the Metroplex area, where folks are really competitive, and they go, and it's a competitive situation. They enter tournaments and so forth.
So we think this will be used a lot.
Yeah, and then obviously this could be just a family-oriented activity where, my kids could go out there and throw a Frisbee at a basket. Maybe, and that'd be the first fist fight. Right. No.
Other questions?
Right.
Mr. Nix.
Is this an expensive facility to set up, Drew, or?
No, and that's the other benefit of having this type of activity is really the expense is just the tee baskets or the tee area and then the baskets that you throw to, like the green. And it's basically a pole with a little chains and a basket. And we have actually, one of the disc golfers works for one of the local companies here in town, and we are working with them to maybe have a donation where they basically pay for all the hardware. And so as soon as we can kind of work through that and confirm that, then we'll acknowledge them. So really, there would be really no cost to the city for the initial installation.
Are these apparatus things that you have to put out each day, or are they out permanently and stay?
They would be out permanently, but they would be set up they would be set up to where if we had to move them because of some conflict that we didn't foresee, then we could do that. But it would be a permanent structure.
Low maintenance for park employees, et cetera.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Okay, go ahead, Drew.
No, well, that was it. And really what the park board was seeking recommendation is for y'all to approve this concept and amend the park master plan
Okay.
to reflect that, so.
So we need to also then, Randy, approve the report separately?
I think you can do them together if you
Can
want to, yes. And it sounds to me like what he's wanting you to do is approve modification to the city master plan, park plan.
And the annual report.
And annual report, so moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Savine, seconded by Mr. Nix to amend the park master plan to reflect the disc golf as presented and the annual report. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, that motion carries unanimous to approve the report and the amendment to the city park master plan for the purposes of incorporating a disc golf course. Thank you, Drew. All right, at this time, we'll move on to the Planning and Zoning Commission agenda items. And first, we have an item, public hearing to request to rezone. And at this time, I will open the public hearing to consider a request to rezone from B2 Retail and Commercial Business District to R3 Multiple Family Residential District, Lot 35, South Side Edition, located at 900 block of South 2nd Avenue. And ask Ms. Chu to give us a brief on that.
Thank you, Mayor. The Planning and Zoning Commission is recommending changing the zoning classification of this 2.7 acre tract of land that is located in the 900 block of South 2nd Avenue from the B2 Retail and Commercial Business District to the R3 Multiple Family Residential District. You have in your packet the staff report, an area map, and you also have an ordinance on page 10 which would affect the zoning change if you concur with the Commission's recommendation. This is a unanimous recommendation of the 7 members of the Commission that were present at the public hearing.
Okay, any questions for Betty?
I'm assuming that it's R3, they're looking at apartments, or did they give you any indication what they're looking
I
at?
would assume they are. I believe the gentleman that has the property under contract is here and would like to speak at the public hearing.
And the difference in B, just for the public, the difference in B2 to R3 would be what kinds of structure differences?
The B2 is our retail and commercial business district. That is pretty much most all commercial uses, save and except the industrial uses. The R3 would limit it to residential development and would allow for multifamily development. Our ordinance allows 24 units per acre.
And I'm assuming that Second Street would carry the load of a multifamily.
Second Street is, it does feed back to the south loop. It's within a block of that, but Second Street is a 50-foot residential street right of way.
50-foot.
It is not a collector street.
Okay. if you were doing a master plan change, amendment, thoroughfare plan change, would it need to be with multifamily there, be something else besides a residential street?
It would depend on the size of the multifamily zone property, whether the residential street could handle the development.
Would that
And
make
the
any?
proximity to either a collector or an arterial.
So let's say they go in, we rezone it, and they come in and put in a R3, will it make a difference on whether you approve a permit based on the load that it creates on that street?
Since you have, it would not directly, I mean, obviously, if you rezone it, the street is there. Like I said, you are within a block of the South Loop, which is a major arterial. And then you've got Alexander Road, which is now a collector street, within about 1,000 feet of it. So on a 2-acre tract of land, you're talking 24 units or so.
So 48 cars maybe. Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Nix?
Betty, looking at the map, it appears that the sanitary sewer line comes across the north side of that property. Am I looking at that correctly?
You are exactly right. The area where the sanitary sewer main runs is a low area. There's a ditch line in that area, and that sewer main runs up and connects to that 6-inch main, and then of course it comes down to the south, and then ties back in at South Loop. So that area would not be buildable as far as having structures on it. It could be used for parking area.
Okay. But we obviously have an easement across there, but
Yes, we do.
the parking facility, a parking lot can be built on top of it, just no
Yes, sir.
structures, right?
And, yes, and most of, actually, the sewer main is actually down kind of in what I call, which is an open ditch now, which I'm sure will be improved in accordance with the drainage ordinance to handle some of their stormwater drainage.
Okay. And this is a single parcel of property, right?
It is.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions?
Were there any
Sure.
negative comments from the neighbors, like off on Hyman Street or anything?
I have not had any comments from the people that were notified.
Okay?
Thank
That's it.
you.
Thank you. All right, at this time, I'd like to ask if there's anyone would like to come and speak in favor of the request. Yes, sir. If you just come forward and state your name and address, please.
I'm Ryan Gailey, 104 Cantor Lane, Stephenville. We don't have an exact architectural drawings on this, what we're going to develop here. But from looking at the property, it's probably going to be around 12 units. It's not going to be the full 24 units, probably 2-story, because of that drainage area in that ditch. I mean, it's pretty kind of washed out there, and will probably be used more for a detention area than it will be even for parking or building, so.
Any questions?
So 12 units of, like 2-bedroom apartments, or,
Yeah, 2-bedroom, yeah,
so it'd be 24 cars probably, something like that?
yes, yeah, 24 cars, probably need a little more additional parking there, yeah.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of the measure? Okay, anyone wishing to speak in opposition of the request? All right, seeing none, at this time I'll close the public hearing and consider a motion.
Mayor,
Mr. McDaniel.
I move approval of the rezoning request of Lot 35, Block 35, South Side Addition from B2 to R3. Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. McDaniel, seconded by Mr. Pendleton to adopt ordinance 2013-21, rezoning from B2 Retail and Commercial Business District to R3 Multiple Family Residential District, Lot 35, Block 35. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, that motion carries a unanimous vote approving ordinance 2013-21 as stated. All right, the next item on the agenda is to consider approval of the final plat for a Block 9 Green Acres addition.
Thank you. The Planning and Zoning Commission has reviewed this final plat for this 5.02 acre single-family residential subdivision, which is located on the corner of Dale and Tab. Trafalgar Homes is the owner of the property, and Haida Engineering will serve as the project engineer. This final plat has been reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Commission. It does come forth with a favorable recommendation as it meets the requirements of the subdivision ordinance, and the commission recommends approval as presented. You have the plat, or a reduced size copy of the plat in your packet. You also have the staff report, and Mr. Hanson is here representing Trafalgar Homes.
Okay, any questions for Betty?
Can you tell me, I'm sorry,
Go ahead, Doug.
Go ahead.
a couple questions on the cost to the builder, the developer. One of the things we have on Tab Street, it says 22-foot right-of-way or pavement. I thought that was going to be a collector street. Is that correct? Is that what?
That is the pavement. The right-of-way width, I believe, is 50 foot in that area. I would have to check.
So so what kind of construction goes up on Tab Street if we approve this plat, if the developer does do the development? What size, what does he have to do on Tab Street?
He would make the improvements to Tab Street, the widening, that is just the existing pavement.
That's the existing
22 foot
pavement.
that is there.
So it becomes a collector street then?
Yes.
Is that correct? So we'd have the entire cost of the collector street. Is that correct?
They would pay, that he would pay for the improvements to the street
Okay.
and the curb and gutter.
And so curb and gutter is completely around the whole
He would
property?
pay for the curb and gutter on his side of the street, yes.
On his side of the street. So how would we do the other side, Mark? Financially?
That would, each of those projects is evaluated individually, and, but on undeveloped pieces of property, if we build it and go in and put it in, then we go through our assessment policies.
So-
If we choose not to build it at the time he's making the improvements, we participate in those projects, then, you'll have one half the road curbed and guttered and one half not.
What about on Wiley Street? Are you putting in the entire Wiley Street then? Is that same thing, or is it? how-
Yes, he will. His
Is that a
engineering
que-
plans show him putting Wiley
The
Street.
complete street,
But I'm
both
sure
sides,
he'd be
curb and
happy
gutter
to-
and everything? Okay. I guess those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Nix?
Well, Doug hit a couple of my questions, but I want to be clear that what Mr. Hanson has presented is, as the plat, meets all the requirements, all the existing requirements that we have for developing R1 lots.
Yes, sir.
That's correct?
Yes.
And Mr. Hanson has worked with the city in the past on developing other properties, and up to this point has always followed our guidelines and complied with restrictions and requirements, et cetera.
Yes, Mr. Hanson and Haida Engineering has worked with him on his other developments
Okay.
also.
And all of these things have been satisfactory from the city's point of view.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Any other questions? The question that Mr. Savine raised about Tab Street and its designation, Betty, could you clarify that for us, what its designation is, as far as the type of street, and what the significance of that is, just so everybody understands that question?
Tab Street, there was property that was dedicated to, I guess that would be the northeast, that is undeveloped, and that was dedicated to the city or donated to the city for the extension of Tab, and that was shown as a collector, and I believe there is a 60-foot right-of-way there.
On the,
It would be going to, on the other side of Dale.
okay,
I think that's probably what you're referring to as the collector street there.
Well-
There was a dedication, I guess, 2 years ago? Is that what?
Well, we were in discussions at one time about funding we had conversations about making Tab Street to Hillcrest a collector street because of the potential of going the other direction as well to Lincolnville Road. So I would assume that Tab Street then would also be a collector street. And if so, then that's a 50-foot.
And within a 50-foot right-of-way, you can still do the pavement, but the discussions we had and the proposal that was before the council for street improvements was the extension of Tab back to Lincolnville Road
The other
from
side of Dale
Dale.
Street.
It was
We
the
were not-
other side,
Wasn't this one?
no.
Okay.
I mean, again, that
That was the engineering that we had on that and the
decision can be
proposal.
made independently.
Well, what we talked about doing was, I think I remember this, we were going to be looking at widening Dale Street up to Tab. And we talked about in the plans going from Dale Street to Hillcrest as part of that expansion, the widening of that
I
street.
don't think so.
Yeah, that was in our packet. Almost
I don't
positive of that. So that's why my question is that, you know, if that, and I understand that there have been some discussions about going Tab Street across to Lincolnville Road as a collector as well. So I assume that would have been a collector all the way across because we actually had plans that were brought before us that talked about that little, as you go down Tab Street, the road makes that little bend around, you know, this, how that goes, and we're talking about having to straighten that straight up. We had all those conversations in one of our work sessions. And so that's why my question is if Tab Street's gonna be a collector street, then I would have thought that that would have been a 40-foot, is that right? Pavement, instead of 22-foot pavement. What you're saying is 22 feet's there now.
That's what's there now.
So I just wanna make sure we discuss that development cost. Because then the city would have a participation in that cost, which would, I thought was gonna be in the several $100,000 potential cost of that corner.
What I recall has been that as we have talked about the extension of the dedicated right-of-way that was given to us on what I'm going to refer to as the east side of Dale Street from this, okay? We have that property, and there's been some discussion about the improvements to Dale Street as well as that extension of Tab. And yes, I don't remember plans, but I remember the discussion that if development did occur, then our opportunities to participate, maybe we could coordinate those projects, get efficiency of the dollar. However, the focus has always been the Dale Street, the drainage, and the Tab, I'm gonna call it the Tab Street extension, for all lack of a better word. I know there's been the discussion about moving it to Wiley rather than Tab, but let's just say that that's where the dedication is at, and that's where the focus has been of the discussion. The others have been if this, then that, if this, then that, but 100% of the focus was only from the east side of Dale. All of the others would be, you know, if it coordinates well, it coordinates well. If it doesn't, it doesn't. That would be the efficiencies of the dollars.
Well, I know that we had, I guess it's Circle Rollins or somebody was here the night that we gave, and we decided not to do,
Now-
when that was turned down, we decided to try to use some of those dollars to come up with a study going back east rather than going to the west, down to Hillcrest. That was in that conversation.
And what and I'm trying to sit here and think and remember where
Well,
you're
I've slept
referring
a
to.
few times too,
In our thoroughfare master plan, it shows an extension and tie-in from Lincolnville Highway to either Pecan Hill Drive coming straight up or Forest Road going straight up, and some road coming across from Lincolnville Highway over. And so, yes, there's illustrations out there all over the place that show some of those kind of things, and that may be part of where you're thinking,
Maybe
because
so.
you're talking about the S curve, and now I'm sitting here going, now that actually is on, I
Non-X.
believe that line is on the thoroughfare
Yes,
master
it
plan.
is. But it goes down to Pecan Hill Drive and goes north and back to Lincolnville
And then I
Road.
think it goes, in that particular illustration, goes to Pecan Hill Drive.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the tie-in of the discussions. Now, how, you know, again, as far as designing plans, I mean, I guess I'm not to that level of detail in my mind, but yes, there's some discussions and some lines drawing out there that are along those lines, but not to the level that I believe you're.
Well, we actually talked about
asking
dollars. We had a dollar figure because we were looking at The discussion was the Dale Street it narrows down, you know, down
okay.
back. And so we actually had some citizens that came
Okay.
and talked about it. We were gonna widen Dale Street up to Tab Street. The question then was, because of the previous discussion of a development on this property, we were gonna go back to the west with a collector road. And then the discussion was, well, since that wasn't approved, then what we should do is take some of the money and then look at doing it back the other direction. So I just wanna make sure I understood what Tab Street.
How far,
And I don't recall that, so I'll just pull that up.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm sorry.
You gonna bring up the comp plan
Okay.
thoroughfare?
But I'll.
I'm just
again,
looking at
I
cost.
hear, if we got some cost estimates out there, then I apologize and
Well,
I'll
I'm just
try to
trying
find them.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out on the assessment, if we do the development, then the city's gonna have a participation because of the subdevelopment requirements. And because of that, what would the city's requirement cost be on Tab Street is my question.
Right, and, you know, there's a couple of ways those participation agreements work. And if the developer puts it all in, and we can just say, okay, we'll pay for our part of it. I can tell you a lot of times, and a previous owner prior to this had asked us about putting it all in and then reimbursing us and participating. So there's been a lot of different, and there's a lot of different ways to skin the
I
cat,
understand
is
that.
really kind of what I'm getting at.
Okay.
So, you know, that part's never been, there's never been anything real formal about that, other than the discussion of participating and recognizing that there is going to be, depending on how complete we wish to make it, and that's gonna have to be just worked out with the developer as well. I mean, it's worked out on every development in those types of situations.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, I've got two questions then. I would like to, and just what has just been brought up, just so I can see, and I don't know how difficult this is to do, but the comprehensive plan designates Tab Street in some manner. What is that? And do we have that available that we could look at to say, here's what Tab Street is officially designated as? And the reason why I'm asking that question is that does the plat adequately reflect that street designation as far as the setbacks and street layout that's on this plat?
The street layout that is depicted on the plat is the street dedication that is there, which is a 50-foot right-of-way,
Okay,
which was dedicated back in 1966.
okay. So does the 1966 designation of that street reflect the 2004 master plan designation of that street and its capacity it's intended to carry, I guess is my question.
The thoroughfare plan is a pictorial representation. It is not specific to the street. It shows a collector street in that area.
Okay, I'd like to see that. Because I think that a pictorial representation does that mean it's a specific street? Because
No,
don't we specifically designate streets in the plan? So,
Your thoroughfare plan is a grid plan which shows you thoroughfares being extended in different areas. You know, Wolf Nursery Road, I guess, is a primary example. If Wolf
Right.
Nursery Road had been put exactly where it was shown on the comp plan, on the thoroughfare plan, it would have been through the middle of St. Gobain and Walmart. So you have some leeway in that plan in adjusting for those thoroughfares.
okay,
And we have an existing street dedication.
And I want to ask the council to please consider this issue and for us to, how can a developer know whether there's an investment required or an assessment of participation or not if you don't know specifically which streets or which designation for capacity? So if you have heard me in recent months talk about the need for us to specifically designate through a thoroughfare plan what those streets are, my end goal in that, I think, is to help facilitate decision-making by developers. So they know, hey, Tab Street is gonna be this wide, so there may be a 1/3 participation on Mr. Hanson's part in this case. Does he know that now or not? If we're going with the pictorial representation, he doesn't know. I mean, Mr. Hanson, do you know whether you're gonna have to participate by 1/3 of the street cost or not?
I think there's some confusion. The city doesn't have to pay for anything if this plat is approved and built. Nothing, if you
Okay.
decide to. I'm required to pay for all the water lines, all the sewer lines, all the curb and gutters, all the streets.
Mhm.
You guys don't have to spend a dime on doing that. That's all borne by the developer. That's your current
Okay,
ordinances.
that's not what our subdivision ordinance says for streets that are over 45 feet. And that's why I'm bringing this up. Because if Tab Street is a street that is larger than just a residential street, then there is a participation by the city.
It's my understanding that Taft Street is 40 feet.
Okay, and so back to my question, is 40 feet what the plan says it's supposed to be?
That's what the plat says.
It's a 50-foot right-of-way. That's the dedicated street.
Okay?
But it says it.
So 50 feet of right-of-way does not equate to a 50-foot road. I'm just, so is the width of the road adequate for the designation of the street? And it doesn't, I mean, I'm not hearing that we have a formal designation of what this street is.
It is a 50-foot right-of-way. It is platted as a residential street. A 50-foot right-of-way
Is a residential street
is a residential street.
Okay.
with a 30-foot street,
Right,
10-foot easement.
just,
So by approving
Right,
this
just
plat,
as-
we are designating Tab Street to be a residential street. And that's in compliance with our comprehensive plan. Is that correct?
Tab Street is what it is. I mean, it is a residential street.
Well, what it is not maybe what it's supposed to be, if the comprehensive plan calls for it to be something more. And that's my question. Does our plan ask us to plan for it to be more than a residential street?
It shows, it does not in that area have any additional right-of-way. It could be developed as a collector street because you can do wider pavement.
Right.
But the development that is there is not necessarily necessitating a wider pavement. It is single-family development
Okay.
versus
Well-
multifamily as we talked about in other areas.
Okay, so where is our main, and I don't know the correct term because the plan uses several, minor arterial or a collector street. Where is our, if we want to call that north-south, which street is our major north-south street to move traffic in that area? Is it Tab? Is it Wiley?
Well,
If you're moving traffic from Dale to
Dale is the north-south.
Hillcrest, okay, east-west then.
Okay.
Okay, I see my north arrow. It's that big thing with the N on
It
it.
says N, yes, I know.
Okay.
But then
Huh?
the Lincolnville Road doesn't set straight, so all of this
Right,
is kind of
right.
out of kilter.
It's all, right. So moving traffic from Dale to, what would it be, Hillcrest? What's the street, what street is, or are any of those streets supposed to be more than residential?
Let me try here, because I think, and help, I think I can help here. We have a map that says that we would like for this to be a collector street someday.
Okay.
And the map shows, as we discussed, it goes right on Tab Street. It's a geographical spacing of our community to try to say, we need to find a way to get traffic from point A to point B and do it in a larger traffic volume than some others. So I'm gonna answer the question,
Okay, that's what I'm
yes,
asking.
yes, this
Okay.
needs to be a collector street if at all possible.
Okay.
That, there in turn says, though, we can't make a developer put in a collector street in this particular case, which comes back to say some of these, where there's existing right-of-way already dedicated. So therefore, we come in and say, we want it to be something more, and we're willing to participate and help pay to play to help create it to be that other environment. Okay? And that's why we have participation agreements and some of the other planning tools that we have to go here. But the reality is, we can't hold the developer responsible and make him pay for that, which we're not asking him to do, and/or, now, if we wish to go in, which is part of the reason why we were, I think now getting back to where I'm getting at, I think that's why we were having that discussion is understand, yes, there's a desire in our master plan to make this a larger thoroughfare somewhere in that vicinity. I've heard Wiley, I've heard Tab, I mean, where that needs to be. Now, and that's where, I think that's where it kind of gets back to some of these discussions of what's going to be borne by the developers or property owners and what's being borne by the city is going to be that discussion, and that is not been determined yet.
All right, okay.
And that
Well,
is a fair.
That answers that question, but it's still, and let me tell you where my mind just jumped to, Dale Street. Dale does this, and I think Dale does that. I mean, it does this.
It does that for the very reasons that we're talking about.
Exactly. That's why I'm bringing this up. Because what I don't want us to do is get locked into a situation where we have designated a street based on what it is versus what it needs to be.
I appreciate that, and we're going to have to address how we're going to be getting traffic as that area develops in the future. And in particular, whether Pecan Hill Drive goes through or Forest Road goes all the way through Lincolnville, and we end up taking all that pressure off of that Dale Street cut across, I keep calling it just cut across, we relieve that. The minute we relieve that cut across there, that other one's going to be, which is why we've had those discussions. It's not inside city limits, we're still long-range plans. I mean, we've got a line drawn there. But obviously, when that occurs then, we're going to have too much spacing there. We're going to have to still have a way for cars to get
Dale, direction.
basically from Forest Road over to Lincolnville Highway without going up and around. So that's the very reason why we have the discussions, why we have the plan. And so your thought process is working good. Now, we've not made that determination, and which is kind of what I may be hearing is, we could make Wiley that street, we could make Tab that street, or we can make another one somewhere. Maybe Brenda, I don't know, is it Brenda that's there, or whatever that other one is? So, Adela, and that will come back, and has always come up at the point in time that someone begins the developments, then we also look at and evaluate, but our participation in those, but it's not the developer's responsibility and participation. Matter of fact, that's why most of the time they look forward to us participating, because now we could help him pay for some of that, of his current obligation. But
Okay, so we're either deciding with this plat approval to designate this as a residential street or not. Or are we saying that it, because the other scenario there is for none of those streets to be designated as an east-west collector. We don't know, it sounds like. It's open for debate and discussion, because the plan is.
What I'm hearing you say is have we made the decision to participate in the widening of Tab or Wiley Street?
No,
And the answer
no,
to that is
no,
no.
no, what I'm
It is a
asking-
residential street
Right.
until the point in time that we choose to widen that road and participate in that widening. The
Okay,
developer
but
is
if
meeting the guidelines of that.
But if we've platted
that
the
road.
area such that that cannot occur, how can that be?
No, it's platted as a residential street.
Right.
It seems to me as though that Tab Street, if we extended Tab onto the Lincolnville Highway and going the other way, back toward the loop or back toward Forest Road, really where we're trying to go is from the Lincolnville Highway to the northwest loop somehow. We have Bluebonnet that does that now. It goes from Lincolnville Highway all the way, and it's a collector street. It's a wider street. And that's only 3 or 4 blocks over from where we're talking about.
Right.
To me, it wouldn't make a lot of sense, and I'm pretty sure nobody over there is gonna want us to put a collector street in front of Keith Stripling's house and in the back of Wayne Blue's
Right.
house where we're talking
I think
about
you're right.
going. When to me, it would make more sense to go out a little bit further and put a collector street. I don't really see.
We are not making that decision. That's,
Okay,
we're not making a recommendation, we're
Yeah,
making that
go
decision.
ahead.
But I think the question, and it may not be what the mayor's asking, but my question though is, if, I appreciate Mr. Hansen's development and the doing the street costs and so on, but by making the question that Alan asked earlier, the plot sizes or the lot sizes, et cetera, and setbacks, in a sense, then restrict that street to a residential street rather than a thoroughfare or a collector street, because you have to have so many feet setback, you'd have to go, I guess, into that guy, the next lot on the south side of the street to make the street wide enough if we ever made it a collector street. If we made to have a collector street, for some reason, we'd have to go to the south to make it that way and take over some of that property, because 50 feet won't do a collector street.
Doug, it's not true. Like,
It's not? Okay, I'd love for you to tell me.
It's your 50 feet, you can do whatever you want with it, it's your street. I am here to request the plating on my land. That's what it is. Whether I could put the curb and gutter here on my land, or I put the curb and gutter 10 feet into your right of way, that's up for y'all to decide. But we're not making a decision here whether this is a collector or a residential street. Somebody said tab is what it is until you guys decide something differently. I'm here to record a plat on my land, and you guys can do what you want with the street. You can tell
Yeah,
me
but,
where to
yeah,
put
but
the
Mr. Hanson, the thing that I'm bringing up here that to me is critical in this discussion is what type street is tab.
You guys
but-
have the ability to make that choice.
But, no, we don't, if the plat is designated one way or another.
The plat does not affect your development of the street. You can't develop my land the way I can.
That's correct. And I think that's it is incorrect for us to, because of the way, the width of other streets in Stephenville, that we are, like Dale Street, the width of that street is, tab will never be that size because of the property lines. Okay, and so for us to sit in here and use that term for Tab Street, I think is creating an incorrect expectation about how that street might be used. And what I'm very interested in us doing as a council is specifically designating which streets are specifically used for which specific purposes, so we don't have these discussions like this about, well, what could it be? Because that I think in turn helps inform both citizens about what their neighborhood is, and it also helps developers understand where am I developing and what is this? Because I agree with what you said, Scott. We've got streets that are already, in Bluebonnet, Good Tree, those are already streets that are at the width that move traffic east to west. Tab is not that. And so maybe we should quit calling it a collector street, is my point, and that it is a residential street. And you know, if we disagree with what I'm saying, to me, that just reinforces the need for us to sit down and talk about the thoroughfare plan and say what is and what is not, so that we can be more specific about some of these things. Because I feel, you know, and I appreciate your comment, Betty, about, you know, the comprehensive plan, when it's put together, is a 30,000-foot view. But there are some things that to support development have to be much more specific than that, so that we know, and I mean, I know you know this, but it's the designation of those streets is critical to those decision processes.
Okay, we have
So,
a 50-foot right-of-way, or the city has a 50-foot right-of-way. If I was building the street for the city, such as what's gonna be required on Wiley, the city would tell me how wide the street is. If you tell me 30 feet, like at portions of Elk Ridge, that means it's a residential road. That's the way most widths are residential roads in Stephenville. You tell me to build it 40 feet, that makes it, I don't know the right terminology, but more of a collector road, like the entrance on Elk Ridge, that's a 40-foot wide. You've got a 50-foot easement, doesn't change anything.
right.
Whether this plat is recorded the way it is or not, doesn't affect you're 50 feet.
Right,
You
and,
decide to put the
right,
road at
and
30
Mr. Hanson,
40
just,
feet or 50
yeah, and I apologize for interrupting, but I got that. My discussion isn't intended for you and for the decision related to your plat, okay?
It's meant for us.
It's meant for the council, okay?
But at the same time, but isn't a collector street 70-foot easement instead of 50?
And for us to have a discussion
Isn't that correct?
about thoroughfare plan,
I'm
okay?
sorry, but if I was
We've
Mr.
got all
Hanson, I would
kinds.
feel like it was
Ideally,
definitely
yes,
about
that's
being
what
my
you
Yeah,
do.
property.
yeah, and
Which is
I
what
apologize for
was my
that.
question,
I mean,
about a
it's
50-foot
not,
easement.
it's not that.
I
Okay,
think he has a valid point. It designates a 50-foot right-of-way, and that is adjacent to his plat, and
Right.
I think that's actually what we're talking more about than the thoroughfare plan or those other items that deserve discussion, but
Right.
perhaps at a later date.
Mayor?
Right.
But
Well,
I think one of the questions, though, is a collector street typically, or at least my understanding is, it's a 70-foot easement rather than 50. And that's the question I was asking, related to, if that's, is 60 foot or, it's wider than 50-foot easement. So my question was about the plat, does it affect the platting of the property, is my question. And then also, do we participate
Mark's
in it?
saying no.
And the answer to that is no, it does not affect the plating of the property. He's only plating his property
Okay.
and not.
All right, so I'll
not
take
city
Mr.
street.
Nick's advice, and we'll, if y'all are okay, council, with us talking about this later, we'll do that. I don't think I'll get any disagreement with that. Which brings me to my second question. Wait,
Are you ready for a motion?
no,
Oh,
not
okay.
yet.
That wasn't your question?
Public comments.
I want to understand, because we've had the curb and gutter discussion earlier this evening, and there's not a lick of curb and gutter in this entire area out there. And so when do we, or how do we, as a council, address the fact that maybe we don't want curb and gutter in that area because it would be an anomaly in a neighborhood? What process or vehicle is there to consider that?
See Mr. Hanson grinning over there, I'm pretty sure he likes that idea.
He likes it.
I would agree with him.
Mark, can you answer that?
If you wish to change the rules, which we've been discussing last night, we had a presentation earlier today, and we've been discussing bringing that up. We actually brought that up in May between the joint meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission and the council, and, you know, it never took traction, but that can obviously be something that we can begin to work on.
Okay, well, I'm not
You know,
asking
you're-
that as a general ordinance question. I'm asking it as it relates to the specific plat and the decision tied to that. Would it require, could there be a specific variance tied to this because of the area where the development is occurring?
You're
No,
not
no.
voting on you're voting on a plat,
I'm
not
not,
variance.
okay, let me restate my question. Would a specific, what vehicle of ordinance would vacate the need for curb and gutter in this block 9?
There's not one.
The Board of Adjustments don't have authority
No,
to
sir.
do that.
No,
No,
they do.
sir.
Okay, so how does the council eliminate the requirement for curb and gutter in a specific area?
We do, at least what's been discussed is developing a task force or asking
Well,
the
that
task force
sounds
to
like
work
too
on
much bureaucracy to me.
modifying
My
the rule.
specific question is, how do we specifically?
We answered your question, and it was no.
There's no mechanism to provide,
Not in this case. This case, we're considering tonight. Has to be considered because it's been brought up.
okay, Randy, just a second. I'm not asking this as a condition of plat approval.
I thought you did. I
No.
thought you were saying
No.
specifically considering this plan.
Let me not use the word plat. The lots that are out there, if we don't want curb and gutter, if I don't want curb and gutter around those lots, how do I do that?
In this case, or
No.
in general?
In general,
In general, you're gonna have to go back and change the rules.
the entire rule?
I don't know about the entire rule. I don't think so.
So
I
is
think-
there a variance mechanism
No. There's not a variance. There's a mechanism by where you can go back and change the rules. That's, I don't call that a variance. I just-
That would have to be originated in P and Z, is that correct?
I think that's
A
right.
change of that ordinance?
I really haven't looked at that, but I know it has to go back for a rule change. I haven't studied how we do that. That has nothing to do with what we're doing tonight, and it's really not what we're considering tonight.
Well, it has a lot to do with what we're doing tonight, because the
I
plat,
thought you just told me that it didn't.
well, the plat approval has nothing to do with this, so you're correct in that specific narrow definition of does it have anything to do with it. But the question, the fact that this property is being discussed in the area that it is, has a lot to do with the question about curb and gutter in a general sense. And so that it's two issues, it's two questions.
Well,
One
then that
is-
needs to be brought up. This example needs to be brought up at the appropriate time
And
as
that's,
something that you
and that's my
consider
question, what is the appropriate time for it to be brought up?
when you go back and consider changing the rules.
And you're saying that, okay, all right.
I think that's what Scott said earlier about the task force considering this as a recommendation for P and Z to consider, to make a recommendation to us. Is that correct, Scott?
We'll get to that report in a minute, but there are a number of things that the task force identified as potential problems for
Okay.
building developers. Some things we could deal with at the staff level. Some things, as everybody here knows, we can't do. They have to originate at P and Z, and we can't tell P and Z, we're gonna, I guess we can do it by appointments, but, these things have to originate at P and Z. It has to be their idea.
Well, I guess I,
There are a lot of people, Mayor, and I'm one of them, that worked hard so that we had curb and gutter. And I think they are a good idea.
right,
And I understand there are places in town that it's goofy when they have one lot, 100 foot long, we got a curb and gutter there, and there's not another curb and gutter within, half a mile there. But in this case, I think it'll look real nice up there. You only have to go from our new road, at the Alexander Road, and follow that to Ollie, all the way to the Linville Highway to see how beautiful curb and gutter can be. It makes the streets last longer, and it helps you with drainage, and it just looks better.
okay. Well, I guess, and I mean, I agree that curb and gutter in the proper application is a good thing. I just don't know if that's the case here. And so my question has nothing to do with the approval of the plat, but it is, I'd like, at least Randy, some help understanding specifically what the mechanism is for us to consider this. And I know it'll feed into the discussion about the task force as well. So, okay, that was my second question. Thanks. Any other questions? Okay, then I'll consider a motion.
Do we have to have public comment and stuff as well, don't we?
This is not a public hearing.
This is not a public hearing.
No public hearing.
I would make a motion that we approve this final plat.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Evans, seconded by Mr. Nix, to approve the final plat of Block 9, Green Acres Edition. Any discussion?
I know there wasn't public comment option, but I know that Mr. Hanson's worked well with the neighbors. Have y'all visited? Have y'all been talking? Okay,
In the last couple of days.
okay.
Well, I know Mr. Hanson submitted a public, a request to speak. I don't know, Andy, would you like to say something?
No, I thought I had to do that to talk. I didn't know I could just stand up.
Oh. Okay, all right.
Don't make a habit of that, Andy.
Yeah, don't make a habit of that. Okay. All right, any other discussion? Okay, all those in, then we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of approval of the final plat, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Final plat of Block 9, Green Acres Edition, as presented. Okay, the next item on the agenda, and Mark, are you going to go over this?
Yes. We do have a representative here with Progressive Waste, and I'm sure he'll be able to answer any questions that you might have. Rather than bring this back to the committee chair, what I've chosen to do is bring this contract back to you. We've been bantering this back and forth with their legal counsel, and we've come up with the final draft here to allow this to continue to be expedited. I'm calling this a first reading as a matter of, kind of a matter of record. One, giving public notice to the public that, you know, we're about to engage a contract here. But then the second piece is if there's any other final positions that we wish to change or corrections, now, you know, now would be a good time to let's kind of work on finalizing those. The mayor pointed out a couple extra, but I'd like for him to go ahead and, you know, put those on the record for this evening. But if anybody else has any other questions about it, again, we have been working, staff's been working very closely with them to make sure we addressed all the concerns that were addressed the other day. And I think maybe we could work on a little bit more clarification, but I think we've done that in this contract. And then what we will do is officially approve this at the January 7th council meeting. And I'm going to kind of call it a second final reading, if you would. I'm doing this as a matter of, to make sure we have some due diligence process put into place here, especially with the holidays in place the way they are. So.
The one question I asked about, and you said that we would address it, is, you know, we're trying to use our landfill more. And have y'all worked a deal with that? Have y'all worked that out?
The provision in there that says that 50% of their load
Goes there.
You know, we're gonna get 50% of the eligible loads is kind of what the discussion
I
is
just want to
there.
make sure we put that.
And so, you know, again, they're very good about it, and again, it was really just a matter of us kind of put it in writing, what we had some gentlemen agreements about.
Okay, thank you.
So,
Hey, Mark. Go ahead.
All right, I didn't mean to jump in front of you, Russ. I
That's fine.
apologize.
Right.
Mark, I don't think it's something in the contract, but can you kind of inform us of the discussions that have taken place regarding dressing up the recycling options at Bate Street or some other location possibly?
yes, and again, you can see in there that we've got some additional wording than what was currently in our contract, and we've got it, and I know that's one of the comments the mayor has here, to try to put a little bit more clarity and definition to what we're trying to do there. But let me state that the discussions are, and they recognize that we want to clean that drop-off recycling area up. We want to clean it up. It'll still be secured, but in essence, trying to allow us more specific load type requirements. We're still bantering it back, and I'll kind of call it that, bantering back and forth about, you know, obviously the easiest thing for them is to have one roll off there. We have them all labeled and then let them drop off because they can pull one whole load rather than having to try to empty and fill and become labor intensive, kind of some issues. And so, you know, again, we have the container issues there that are there. Now, at least what's been going on back and forth there is trying to get more specific, because I know, you know, some loads obviously bring greater dollars and may fill up a little bit easier. The problem with that has been historically, as we've discussed, if somebody puts it in the wrong bin because it's not controlled as much, then you have contaminated waste. It can't go to the same place, and therefore you lose that efficiency of the dollar. So they're just trying to basically say, we don't want to be responsible if some goon comes in there and contaminates the load. You know, so we're still working on it, but there's a general consensus. They have agreed. They're going to clean it up. We're going to try to make it look nicer. Now, what is exactly look nicer is, you know, I can tell you, you know, that's still.
I understand.
I love Mr. Wagner's comment. It's maybe that's the eye of a blonde or a brunette kind of a comment. You know, I mean, that's going to be some subjectivity, but they've made the commitment to us to work on that. And so we're gonna, try to put some more teeth into it, and for me, make it more visually appealing and customer-friendly to use.
That's good enough for me
That is
then.
the goal.
Okay.
Now, how we still get there is still obviously what we're trying to do, but they have given us verbal commitment to work on that, and that's all I can really, I'm trying to get some more verbally here, or in writing, but hopefully that helps you clarify their intent, because I anticipate seeing more traffic over there. The trail's going to be extending on the backside of that property, and, it's gonna become more visible,
Yeah.
so we need it to look nice.
Scott, did you have something?
I do. I'm sorry, I don't remember your name.
Henderson.
Tim, I'm sorry.
Tim, I want to thank you for your work on the contract. Y'all do a good job, and you do it for a reason. You might want to sit down, because this may not end as good as it started. But you do a good job, and you do it for, I think it's a good price, and I appreciate that. When we had our preliminary discussions, we talked some about these leakages from the truck. Yesterday, I just happened to be home as the trash guy went by and picked up the monster and set it down. So I went out to get it and to put it to the side of the house. And there's a big puddle again. And so I began to follow, in every house, there's another puddle again. I hope that you guys understand that, I don't know about the rest of this council, but I am damn serious about these oil spills in the road. Because people walk through those, and they walk in the house and get it on mama's carpet, and then we're all in trouble. We have you guys have got to figure out how to fix these trucks where they don't leak.
I agree with you 100%, and we have been working very diligently on that. And I think we talked about in our meetings, we spent a lot of money on these trucks, trying to get them dried up, and upgrading our maintenance personnel internally, fixing them correctly, putting the right type hoses back on them, just everything we can do to correct those issues. And I understand exactly what you're saying, and I appreciate it, and I agree with you 100%. I don't want to walk through my house and have oil on my boots and, have the same issue. There's no doubt. Or, you drive through it and gets up in your driveway.
Well, we just had the discussion as we were having our preliminary meetings about whether we wanted to visit with y'all or whether we wanted to bring some other people in. And I think we did the right thing, but I think it was advantageous to y'all, that the decisions that we made. This issue, this leakage issue, was a big deal during those discussions. And so you can see why I'm a little upset. I got that in my street in front of my house, and then I go in and get my packet out and start looking through it, and here we are with this contract. I just want to make sure that you guys understand that this is just not talk at a meeting, that I am serious about this leakage. And you're gonna hear from me every month I'm here if we don't get those leaks stopped. Because we're doing everything we can to have a pretty city, and that's not helping us.
Right. And I need to know about them when they happen, definitely.
They happen,
And that's
definitely.
another issue we're trying to get straightened up too, is just employees, when they have a leak, that they stop immediately so we can contain it. Because I can't guarantee that these trucks aren't perfect, and I can't guarantee they're never gonna spring a leak, because they will. That's the thing that we're trying to work on and get these guys to understand that work for us is, as soon as we spring a leak, we stop and let our maintenance people get out there, clean it up, contain it, because we can stop it and then get the truck to the yard. But unfortunately, we're not 100% where we need to be on the personnel, but we're definitely working in that direction.
Yeah. Mark?
Well, I think this is a good point, and I want to use this also as just a public announcement to make sure, and I'm going to use you as an illustration here, if you don't mind. I hope that when you got in the house, you went ahead and made a phone call to Waste Management and asked them.
I just got mad.
And please don't just get mad. And that's really what I want to ask the citizens to do. Let us know that I can tell you right now, and I know this, especially as it's been going on the last year, I guess, or the few instances that we've had. We had a resident over on Bluebonnet that was very upset, and it kind of had a regular occurrence there for a little while. But I'll tell you that every time they called and they were notified, they were there usually within hours with a high-pressure washer, cleaning it up, making sure that it's done adequately, properly, and clean. At the same time, they can't fix something that they don't know about, and nor can we try to help them address that. They're working on it from the equipment perspective. We heard about some of their equipment challenges, rotted out bottoms and some other things. They're working on it, and quite honestly, they found those problems when we started making all the calls and complaints. So please let us know, let them know. I don't care who you call, be sure to let us know. They will and have been very, very responsive. And then last but not least, and again, I know the mayor wants to make a recommended change here, and I feel comfortable they'll be okay with this, but we did put in a penalty provision in this contract that says that if they don't come clean it up and work on the problem, fix the problem within a day, that they're going to be fined. And they are very comfortable with that because they know, and I can tell you that I know, that we probably won't ever find them because if they know about something, I found one while I was running, and it was a hydraulic leak that went 2 blocks. And I called in a week after it was, I kind of got mad first, and then I called. They still went out and cleaned it up appropriately within that day. So please don't get mad about the issue. Allow them the opportunity because they've been very responsive and they want to do the right thing. And so with that said, I'm not trying to I hear what you're saying, and I know that this has been a very concern. We've addressed it, but I also want to make sure the public knows, don't just get mad. Give us an opportunity. We want to clean it up because we take very good pride in our community.
Okay. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I'd like to address my question to the gentleman from Progressive. It is my understanding that TCEQ has been out to 1291 North Bates Street. There are half a dozen deep puddles full of unsanitary, unsafe water in front of your office. And I know it's been reported to the city. Has the city contacted you about remediating that, or are y'all in discussions about cleaning up that filth?
I hadn't, I'm not aware of that.
Okay, then I'll address the question to Mark.
It's been brought to my attention, I'm sorry, but I'll find
So
out.
we'll look into that.
Yeah, I'll look into it.
My information came straight from TCEQ, and it's unsafe.
You're saying,
It's-
I found out about something today from another organization that we've not been
All right,
notified
okay.
on.
So we
Hope
just need to
somebody
give
will
Mark
look
a
into
chance
that.
to check into that.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Any other?
More than happy to.
Okay, Mark had alluded to a couple of things, and Brady, I appreciate your committee's work, and Tim, you with Progressive Wage, I mean, y'all working with us is good. Like I said last time, it's a partnership. And we've added the paragraph in here about recycling, but I really don't think it's adequate. I'd like for us to go back and be more, there's a balance here. A lot of this thing is written as performance-based. It's not prescriptive, but there is a little bit of prescriptive in here. And I think this is an area where all this says essentially is provide 3 roll-offs. Well, that doesn't really address the need to make it customer-friendly so that there is a way to understand this is where do I need to segregate, do I not? And maybe there's a need for signage, or there's some standards in here to help it. Because one of the things we're trying to do here is educate people about recycling, and just having 3 roll-offs out there, you got to do that. So we got to come up with words in here that incentivize us together to be better in this area. And just saying we're going to provide 3 roll-offs at Bates isn't that. So I just asked for us to go back and look at that paragraph and be I mean, if you look at some of the other paragraphs, we're a little prescriptive in there. Okay, the other thing, and this gets right to the heart of the issue that Scott was talking about, with liquidated damages in section 30, failure to clean any spill on the city streets caused by the service provider's collection vehicles within 24 hours of notification within a city, $25 per incident per day. I want to recommend we move that to $500 per incident per day. And, I mean, if, you know, Mark said earlier that it'll never happen. Well, if it never happens, then there's never a $500 charge. But, you know, to me, $25 is easy to say, well, okay, maybe next time. But $500, well, I'm gonna think about it. So I don't know what the right number is, but, you know, I think that's something, you know, Brady, y'all could look at putting some teeth in that, as far as an incentive. The last thing, and it's also related to this, is I don't know that customers calling is 100% of the answer. And I don't see in here a section on quality assurance, quality control on the part of the service provider. And I think there should be. I mean, you should be required to have a QA/QC plan that we can look at and say, okay, yeah, because you got the guy that's doing some QA/QC, but I didn't see a section in here. Did I miss that?
There's nothing in there.
Okay. Well, I think we need to add that. I mean, you're already doing it, which is good, but it's a way for us to document that you're doing that, because that's a part of calling. It's your guy driving around with the truck too, and it's you training your employees on their, you know, quality assurance as they're doing things. So those were my additions. And again, thanks for y'all's work on this. So now what? We got the first reading, and so
That's all we do.
we're done with that, okay?
Yeah, well, and just for the public record, the proposed rate that is in here is to go to $11.35, $11.34 for the residential customer, all provisions being the same of current levels of service, which is twice a week pickup with the poly carts, and then the commercial rates are being modified exactly accordingly to the residential rates that have occurred here. So
Okay.
I just want to kind of put that on record.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, next we'll go to the nominations committee report, and Dr. Cross.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The nominations committee is bringing before the city council 2 items of business. Let me first of all direct your attention to page 35, which contains our list of recommendations for membership on the citizens' boards and commissions. And with that in mind, I move that the council accept our recommendations and appoint these people to the boards and commissions.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Dr. Cross, seconded by Mr. Evans to approve the annual appointments to Citizens Board of Commissions as presented. Any discussion?
I just have one comment, Mayor.
Okay,
In 2007, when I served on the Planning and Zoning Commission, we had 5 men and 5 women. It was equally balanced. When we approve this here, we're gonna have 8 men and 2 women on Planning and Zoning Commission. I would encourage us to look to better diversify that commission with our future appointments. Thank you, Mayor.
okay. Any other comments?
Just for the record, we had no women candidates. There were no women applicants.
Okay,
If I might, Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I would just like to add that the diversity of the membership is a function of those who choose to voluntarily apply for membership, and it has always been our policy to make the best appointments available
okay,
without regard to gender or any other irrelevant factor.
okay. Well, and I'll just point out before we vote that if anybody out there is looking to participate, we still have a vacancy in place 4 of the dangerous buildings abatement, so give Dr. Cross a call or the city if you're interested. It's not too late to get on board. All right, any other discussion? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, that motion carries unanimous vote. Those appointments are approved as presented. Dr. Cross?
Okay, the second item of business concerns resolutions submitted to the membership of the Texas Municipal League. Basically, these resolutions are, have been developed by the Texas Municipal League, and we are recommending that the resolutions listed on page 36 be approved by the city council, be endorsed by the city council, and that the TML be informed of our decision. So with that in mind, I so move.
Second.
Okay, so let me make sure I understand, Dr. Cross, we've got 1 through 25, and was there an exception there?
You didn't state any.
Okay, okay. So measures 1 through 25 as presented.
Cindy tells me they're originally 26 and it's
Okay.
been removed. So
All right, so I just wanted to clarify that for the group, that what is here is what is, it
What is
reflects.
here is what was agreed on by the committee.
Right,
There was another resolution which the committee did not approve of, and passage of which the committee does not recommend.
right. And do you care to state what that?
I can't recall exactly
Mayor, I
what
can't.
it was, but yes.
Go ahead, because
I
you.
believe it was a notification to citizens by,
Media, electronic media
by
versus mail.
emails versus hard mail by the court. In other words, they were wanting to cut corners and send people emails and count that as verifying that they had notified them that there was court action or of a date or just a shortcut, cut corners, but there was no way to verify that the people were actually receiving that.
Yeah.
It's like,
Okay.
not a good idea, so the committee agreed not to do that.
All right, I just wanted to pause there for a moment and show that the committee did discuss each of these, and
Yes, it did.
we decided not to just, rubber stamp what TML sent us, to try to tailor it to what we thought our community needed, and I just appreciate the committee's work with that. So, is there any other discussion here?
I might just mention, there was some discussion about unmanned aircraft. I saw on the news yesterday where Amazon.com is talking about delivering packages with the
Right.
drone. Russell probably gonna put
But the federal government's gonna regulate it so they can tax it. You saw that too, I'm assuming.
Right.
Of course.
Okay, so let's go ahead and proceed to vote. All those
Mayor,
in
I
favor?
do have a comment,
Oh, okay,
because
go
I still
ahead.
have a
I'm
problem
sorry.
with number 9 on here about sobriety checkpoints that has to do with the violation of our constitutional rights. We had this meeting on November 12th, and then 8 days later, in Dallas, Fort Worth, 60 miles away from here, they're having sobriety checkpoints, and that's illegal in Texas. Not only were they having illegal sobriety checkpoints, they were asking people to submit saliva and blood samples to them, and they were paying them to do it. Federal contractors, and they had off-duty Fort Worth policemen that were helping usher the people in and handing the money to people for specimens. They were paying them for specimens. Now, this is NBC News. I made a copy for every council member. This is not far-fetched. This is 60 miles from here, 8 days after I got outvoted 2-1 in committee to support this. I trust, and this is no reflection upon our local police department. This would never happen here. This is an apology from the Fort Worth police chief, because he didn't know what was happening. Federal contractors at 2 different locations in his city came in and had the off-duty police officers pulling people off the road in the middle of the night. Everyone that was pulled off the road thought that it was mandatory, and it's illegal in Texas, but it's going on. So I would just ask, Mr. Chairman, if you would accept a friendly amendment to drop number 9, and I'd be glad to support the other 24. But it's a slippery slope, and I don't want to go there. The Texas legislature probably won't pass it, but I don't think Stephenville needs to be on the bandwagon of being a part of it. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. All right, so you've presented an amendment to the motion to eliminate item 9.
Yes, Mayor, I've
Okay.
asked for a friendly amendment to the motion.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
Well, he's asked, I think, Dr. Cross for a friendly amendment.
Okay.
I haven't heard anything, so the correct
Well-
thing, excuse me,
Okay.
the correct way to do it without agreement from Dr. Cross is to make a motion to amend the original motion.
Oh,
to-
okay.
Well, I'd like to raise a point of parliamentary procedure. If, Councilmember McDaniel is making a motion, if I accept it, what are the consequences of that? Does that drop number 9 from?
I'll tell you what, Dr.
resolutions?
Cross, we use the term friendly amendment on several occasions, and I've let that slide. There's no such thing in parliamentary procedure, so
That's-
he needs to
Randy,
make
I appreciate you saying that because that's what I was about to say.
He needs to make his motion, and there needs to be a second or lack thereof, and then we need to vote on it.
Right. So you don't have to be in the hot seat to accept or deny. We just need to hear a second or not.
Right.
And then the amendment is then voted on or not. So I'll ask again, is there a second? All right, failing to hear a second, the amendment dies as presented, and we'll proceed to vote on the main motion, which is to accept items 1 through 25 for the resolution submitted to the membership of the TML. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
Okay, that's a vote of 5 to 1. All right, Dr. Cross, you got anything else?
No, this concludes the nominations committee business.
Okay, thank you. All right, now we'll move to Mr. Evans and the Planning and Development Committee report. Scott?
A couple of items on our agenda. First one was the cell towers. We've been in discussions with Verizon about putting a cell tower on some city property. I think what staff asked us for at the committee meeting was just a consensus of if anybody had any heartburn. Nobody indicated any at that time, and I guess I just asked if anybody has changed their mind. If not, we instructed staff to go ahead and proceed with their negotiations with Verizon.
I brought up the one question about the strobe type lights. I have a friend that lives out off 205 where that one, I don't know, it's 2,000 feet tall or something, I don't know, but he lives a few miles down the road, and he says that they have to put special light window coverings because he said he can't sleep.
It's a part of the discussions.
Okay. I just want to make sure that's still in the discussion.
I would imagine Ken, you may know that the FAA is probably gonna require, if that thing gets too tall, it's
Yeah,
gonna
and
have to be
Scott,
lit.
that's the key thing. I think we need, because of the hill, that's to our advantage, and Mark and I've talked about this, to look at the potential of getting or requiring the height to be low enough that they can go with a red light versus a strobe light, or just for us to understand what the options are. Because it is a height issue on the tower light, but I think that's a great question for us to ask, to say what are the options? And is there one that's less, because that light is pollution, in my opinion. It degrades the,
Unless you're a pilot.
right. So, and if there is an opportunity, I think that's one thing that should be looked at. So that's a great point. Any other questions there? Okay.
The next thing on the agenda was the update on the task force. As probably everybody on the council knows, we had asked the task force to facilitate a meeting of the builders and developers to hear their concerns about building in Stephenville. And yesterday, we received their report. None of us had an advance copy, so it was all news to us. It was all done electronically, so we weren't even given a paper copy. But as I understand it, y'all do now, Mark, have a copy.
I did receive,
We'll be getting one in a day or two.
well, I thought I'd go ahead and have it for next week. Since we're gonna be meeting anyway, I'll just go ahead and just put it out there and just say, here it is.
So everybody get a chance to look at it.
Yeah, just, make sure we give a formal.
I don't think anybody's gonna be surprised by most of it. And like we said a while ago, the things range from things that are, we can improve on at the staff level to things that we talked about earlier that are gonna have to originate at P and Z and are gonna require, probably a different direction on the part of the city. So, I really appreciate the task force and the work they've done. They've been very professional. The builders and developers have been very good to work with, and so we're looking forward to a good outcome from all this. Of course, if anybody's got a specific question, I'd be glad to try to answer it, but I don't think anybody wants me to give the full report tonight, so. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
One question, Scott, specifically, the curb and gutter's been up several times tonight, but that is a topic for the task force.
It is.
And that's something that they will determine if they need to make a recommendation to P and Z to consider for a recommendation to us, right?
Well, the task force, I think one of the things we struggle with is the chain, the proper chain for communicating with us. But, the task force, we have, actually, everybody on the planning and development committee, I think, is a member of the task force, and the mayor is a member of the task force, so that's how they communicate with us. But the curb and gutter, just as an opinion, and I've already given it once, I think there are some places we should stick to our guns and have curb and gutter. I think there are many good reasons to have it. I do think there are some areas of town that are void of curb and gutter, and to require somebody that's remodeling the house to go in and pour 50 feet of curb and gutter in the middle of a block when there's no curb and gutter in the neighborhood, it just looks, I've seen some of them, and they look stupid, really, in my opinion. But maybe we should revisit some of this. But it's just, you gotta, we've talked about trying to not be driving costs for these builders. We want them to be profitable. We want real estate to be affordable. We want it to sell and move, and we want people to move here. We don't want housing to be an issue with our economic development. So it's an exercise that we're going through. When this work is done, I'm sure we won't be through. There'll still be more work to do to continue to be friendly, and yet I've reminded the task force on a number of occasions that as a council, we have certain obligations that they might not think of. But we do have an obligation to keep the playing field level and to not harm neighbors. And y'all heard this speech before, but we do have obligations that they may not think of. So I look forward to working with them. I think all of y'all will enjoy reading the report.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything you want to add?
Well,
Ken?
I just want to add, just to remind everybody that the task force is composed of the city council, the city staff, the Chamber of Commerce, and the Stephenville Economic Development Corporation. And I think, Scott, you just brought up a key point, that there are obligations that the council has that they do not, but what the other organizations bring is a perspective and an avenue for us to, as we talked about last night, to cooperate and work together on these things, instead of it being a controversial issue. There may be some disagreement, but how do we work together to get a solution that's in the best interest of Stephenville? And that was the core that resonated, I think, that was the feedback that we got from the discussion with the builders, that, hey, it was nice to just sit down and talk about what's on our mind. And they were very professional about it. But it is also, last night, I think it was good to have that discussion as well. And you're right, there's many more discussions that will need to take place, but the communication is the key. And,
They represent a faction out there that the builders and developers feel comfortable talking to, where they might not feel comfortable dealing directly with us. But there are we've talked about having a similar meeting with the real estate people, and there may be other groups that come up. I don't know, but I think the task force, I was skeptical to begin with, but I think the task force is going to be a good thing.
Well, I want to thank, Mark, you and your staff for your cooperation and receptiveness to the whole thing, because as you said last night, I mean, you're just about making things better, and it's a team effort, and I appreciate what you're doing with this as well, because as I said last night, you all have your day job. I mean, what you're trying to do every day, and this is as a group us trying to get together and work through some issues, and so it's really I appreciate what you're doing as well. So, okay, Scott, you got anything?
No, sir, that concludes my report.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, the next item on the agenda is the Personnel Committee report, and unfortunately, Councilman Hogan called me earlier this afternoon, and he's in bed with a fever, and figured he didn't want to make his two sidekicks here sick, so he decided to stay home tonight. So y'all can appreciate that. So Mark, unless you have something you want to present on that, on the compensation.
The
report.
committee's met, and we'll be meeting again next week, and so,
Okay.
they're still working on it.
Right,
I think
but
they're
it
gonna
is,
get to the report.
it was a regular scheduled meeting to meet next week anyway, so, right, okay. All right, Public Health and Safety Report, Mr. McDaniel.
Thank you, Mayor. The Public Health and Safety Committee met on November 12th to discuss a situation about early public alert, excuse me, warning systems. The first Tuesday in November, we had a vote to follow a staff recommendation to acquire our own Citizens Early Warning Alert System that we had, as a city, complete control over. On a 4-3 vote, the council said no to our own system, even with money in the budget to acquire the system. At this time, the city residents are asked and encouraged to sign up for Code Red with Erath County for your early warning system. There was so much versatility if we had our own, but that hasn't occurred. And so I would encourage everyone to sign up with the Erath County's Code Red. They've taken the lead on this, and we've taken no action. Mayor, unless there's anything that you would like to add, this completes the report of the Public Health and Safety Committee.
Okay. Any comments or questions for Mr. McDaniel? Okay, thank you for that report. All right, the next item, some good news on the Community Development Block Grant. So, Mark, if you want to present that, please.
As you are aware, we were notified, I believe in September, that we had received what we refer to as the CDBG, the Community Development Block Grant. It is federal funds that are passed through to the state, through the Department of Agriculture. It's to be used in low to moderate income neighborhoods, and specifically addressing, it has some priority categories, and the highest priority is given to utilities within those areas and improving the utility services. Our application was for a project in the areas of Third Street, Alexander Road, Swan Street, Grossbeck, First Street, and Swan Street. A copy of the map is attached, I believe, under the the contract for services. But at the end of the day, let me just tell you that this is a total project, estimated project of $400,000. We will receive $275,000 with this approval, and our matching requirement is up to $125,000. And it is for this particular project. This is the contract that actually obligates us. Let me tell you that, because I've had a couple of people ask about this, in this particular project, we did engage a company, so it's kind of item number 2 for this whole process, but the Tim Geithner maybe, or something like that, Glendenning firm that actually prepares the application for us at no cost. And the exchange is that if we receive the application, then they're allowed to recoup their, not only just their application, but also assist us in the management and the contractual obligations, meeting all of our contractual obligations. So the next contract is for, to retain them. Since we did receive this, you know, there's many firms, we go through kind of a solicitation process, but this is a company that we're trying somebody new this year, and again, they were successful in their first attempt. So I'm real pleased with them so far, and we'll see how the rest of this process works. But at the end of the day, that real excited. This gets the ball rolling. We have approximately 2 years to complete this project, and there should be land acquisition. So I see it going pretty smoothly and pretty quickly now that we have the paperwork and the green light to get going. So this is the official notification now that we can begin.
Okay. So we need a motion here to proceed with the contract, right?
I need you to accept the contract and the provision of the contract, and then the second would be to
With the
approve.
contract for the management services.
Approve the
So we need
contract for the
two
management
motions here.
services.
So I entertain a motion now for the contract with TDA for the,
Mr. Mayor, I'll make the motion that we approve a contract with Texas Department of Agriculture for the rehabilitation of water and sewer lines.
okay, it's been moved by Mr. Pendleton, seconded by Mr. Nix to proceed with the contract as stated. Any questions, comments?
Let me ask a question. You just mentioned this consultant, and I can't pronounce his name either, but is that a requirement of this grant?
It is not a requirement, but I will tell you that we used to do this on our own when I first started with the city, and we had never received an application and never received one of these grants until, and quite honestly, the first company we ever had help us after I came on, we ended up firing. Long story there, but my point is, your success rate goes up significantly because of their knowing the right things to say and do, and enable you to get those scores. I can just tell you that most communities.
We're talking about this $35,000.
Yes, it is customary in this practice and in this field, and.
In engineering, that would be a requirement of the.
Right, now, we'll have another contract coming to you, and, you know, again, we're still going through that process, because there's still some paperwork, solicitation requirements, but we'll be awarding that, hopefully in January, to begin the design work. But, no, it is not required. It was, now, please understand, we did sign an agreement with them to make this application, and that was, I mean,
So if I want to vote against him, it won't matter. 'Cause we're already-
well, you really have already kind of hired him here in this situation, 6 months or 9 months ago. However,
let me tell
you know,
what
we
I'm
didn't
voting.
have to hire him at the time, that is correct.
Well, just, it's not gonna affect my vote. To do this is generally a good thing. But this is a $400,000 deal, and we got $55,000 worth of engineering and $35,000 from this guy.
Yes, sir.
So basically, 25% of this deal didn't have anything to do with water and sewer lines. And we wonder why people don't like government.
Well,
This is
the,
this is a good example.
you're really gonna get frustrated on the next one that you approve, not tonight, but the next, when we get all our next grant documents, you're really gonna be upset then. But this is actually a low-cost administrative cost overhead, if you would, grant.
Mr. Mayor, I'm gonna vote yes. when you call the
Okay.
question.
All right,
But I might not love it.
all right. Okay, so, any other questions, comments? All right, then we'll proceed to vote on the first item, which is the motion to, proceed with the contract with, Texas Department of Agriculture as stated. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, so that motion carries, unanimous vote as presented. And I'll entertain a motion for the, management services contract with Tim F. Glendenning.
Mayor, I move we approve the management services contract with Tim F. Glendenning and Associates.
Okay, do a second?
Second.
Was that you, Mr. Savine? Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Nix, seconded by Mr. Savine to, approve the management services contract as stated. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, that motion carries, unanimous vote. I guess I'm gonna slow us down here just a second, and just make one comment, and it's tied to what you were just saying, Scott. When I talked our last workshop meeting, I talked about the capital improvement plan and the financing strategies for both our infrastructure replacement and new items. And part of what that plan could do for us is actually outline what are the strategies to pursue some of these funding mechanisms, so we have full visibility of what the cost might be if we were successful. And I don't know, Mark, how to factor that into our budget process to be able to say, you know, here's a potential high if we get everything, and here's a potential low if we are, you know, we're shut out, as we're trying to project, what these grants might do for us. Because I think this is an incredible tool to be able to pursue these grant opportunities that are very much like what we've done in the energy performance arena, where if you get savings, it's paid for through the savings. And this is sort of like that if you get the grant, it's you know, you don't have to pay for it if you don't. But if we do, being able to say, well, you know, how much of this do we want to go after, as far as a grant strategy, and maybe be as aggressive as possible, realizing the return it could be, but there might be a point where we'd say, well, you know, we can't afford any more match this year, or not. You know, I don't know, just something to think about. All right, we'll just proceed with the consent agenda.
Mayor, I move we accept the consent agenda.
Second.
Been moved by Mr. Sveen, seconded by Mr. McDaniel to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, great. Is there a comment down there?
I said, way to go, Doug.
I didn't,
betcha.
okay.
Joe would be proud.
Yeah.
I know he would. I did this in Joe's honor.
All right,
He's sitting at home mad at us.
Right.
I hope Joe's
Right.
watching right now.
all right, we'll go now to the comments by city administrator. So Mark?
One of the projects that was just approved, I'm going to mention in a couple of months before they start construction rather than discuss it now. Because my experience, and I had one of the council members contact me earlier, and my illustration to them has always been, everybody kind of forgets some of the things we do whenever all of a sudden we start constructing. I get this phone call all the time, and they just say, now, what are we doing over there? Or what are we doing over there? Well, we approved it 6 months ago or 3 months ago, or, so I'll talk a little bit more about it as the construction gets closer on one, especially the big project here, because I know that we'll get some phone calls about it. But in regards to one of the projects, I want to just point out, as many know, Alexander Road is open. but please understand, it is not finished. And I'll just kind of leave it at that. Other than that, I really just don't have any more comments. I know next week is, I believe Ms. Stafford wants to be making an announcement about something. Did you put a note over here? I missed it. Next week, we do have Holly Jolly Christmas out on the,
Fire station.
we did a walkthrough at the fire station.
Cindy, do you have an announcement?
The dedication date we have set, is that formal? Okay, I'm sorry. I was doing Holly Jolly Christmas then, I'll get in that, okay, now I'm with you. Holly Jolly Christmas, we have scheduled, is next Tuesday night. I know that we'll be in committee, in some committee discussions, I'm not sure how that'll go, but I know it goes until I believe 8 o'clock. I believe it goes till 8 o'clock, so hopefully we'll get out in time so that you can still go participate some. And I know the mayor will step out for a moment anyway. The other thing is our employee Christmas luncheon. Because we'll be playing a state football game, I don't want to jinx it, but I just feel confident we're going to be playing a state football game on the Friday, the 20th. We moved our employee Christmas to the Thursday at lunch, Thursday the 19th. So if you have not received that, you should be receiving it soon. And please know that, you know, we invite all of our former employees, retired employees, I mean, just, and please make a point to come, and if you, we'd love to have you, even if it's for just a short moment, we'd love to have you there. But also, along with that date, we've been working at trying to identify a good dedication date for the fire station. They still lack a few punch list items, so I'm going to sit here and kind of sort of say that we're still ongoing here. But we have vacated station number 2 on Harbor Drive. We are now in operation out there. Obviously, we'll continue to have some of those things like moving into a new home. You still find those little things you wish you could change, and we'll be working on those. But we are going to schedule that dedication for that afternoon of the 19th. So we will. I don't believe it's not normally a Tarleton basketball game. It's not normally that time of year. We're not going to have a football game because we'll be playing the next day. Hopefully that's just a good time. Please understand we will be coordinating with and sending out several invites here to make that formal dedication, and we will have a formal ceremony and do that recognition. I can already tell you many people have been coming by. We're showing a lot of tours. We're trying to do an open house type of a setup as well. But the formal dedication will occur that afternoon. Have we set a time yet? 2 or 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock. So it looks like we're going to have lunch, let you go freshen up a little bit, and then we'll have a formal dedication at 2 o'clock if you can put that on your calendars at this time. So with that, I don't have any other announcements. And I bumbled through that one right tonight.
Okay.
Could you address Ollie Street status, Ollie in Washington?
If you've already seen some of the signs going up, their schedule is, and I thought I mentioned this last time, but if I didn't, I'll do so again. They're waiting for the university to get out, and then we'll start seeing some aggressive construction. They really said that they were probably not going to start the construction until after January 1 and do it before January 14th or whenever they return. So they're not focused. They're not as concerned about the school district traffic, SISD traffic, as they are Tarleton traffic. They're trying to reduce that as much as possible, and so you know you should start seeing that activity all be occurring now. As a reminder, I'll just kind of point out. Not only will they be installing that particular light, but they will be removing the light at Baxter, just as a reminder. So I kind of like to throw that out there because I don't want it to be a surprise, if you would. You know, that's been a part of the plan from
part of our deal.
Part of the deal, basically. But you should. Well, I saw the signs this up the other day too. Okay. So I think you're going to start seeing. Now the rest of it's just been private property owner development cleanup, not ours.
Okay.
Or not state.
Mark, are you familiar with the out-of-town contractors that are burying conduit along the North Graham and Lingleville Road? My question is, both of those right-of-ways are TxDOT owned. Apparently, they hit a city water line on Lincolnville Road. Who's responsible to make sure that that company puts our citizens' lawns back in the condition they were before they came in and tore them up, burying that conduit, probably for fiber optics?
It is the contractor's responsibility. We have no oversight, thanks to deregulation. We have no oversight, nor do we have permitting processes and procedures. We did have a gentleman come in earlier today, and I'll refer you to the complaint process or remediation process with the Public Utility Commission if there's some concerns there. But we do not have oversight of and/or any regulatory authority over that.
That's what I was afraid you were gonna say.
I'm sorry to tell you.
They're on the other side of Lincolnville Road now,
If-
tearing things up.
Again, we've had our issues with them. We're staying on them and asking them just to kind of clean up. I went to Fort Worth yesterday and saw, they still got guys cleaning up on 281. It's all the same line. Just because people are asking, I'll just tell you that it is, the contractor came by and just kind of, I think they want to try, and they're gonna try. So I encourage, if somebody has an issue, to identify the truck and try to talk to the foreman, and see if you can't get it, talk to the supervisor there on site and see if you can't work to remedy it, kind of just getting back to it. If you do contact us, we'll try to help give you some more contacts, the best we can, but we really, we don't have any teeth, and we're in the same boat. I know we've had a couple of places we've asked them to clean up, and I'll tell you that they've been really a little bit responsive. But I'll tell you right now, if you're thinking they're gonna hydromulch or or sod your grass or do some of those other things, I'll just, they're not gonna do it. And they don't have to do it. No disrespect to anybody, I understand. But, they are working and operating within the legal right-of-ways. And that's, if we catch them out of the right-of-ways now, there can be some different points. Sure. But, I've heard of them hitting a sprinkler system, and if the sprinkler system is in the right-of-way, it's, I hate to say it, it shouldn't have been there. They're calling the dig test, they are required to call dig tests. I mean, so, if you got some of those kind of things, which are water line, they should have called, or we should have been able, maybe we didn't mark it right. I don't know what exactly the details on that particular situation, but, there's a lot of things going on here, but, hopefully I've answered your question that we have no jurisdiction, but we're gonna try to assist the citizens. And, again, the gentleman that I've spoken with on a couple of occasions has been very, very, very nice and pleasant, so don't be afraid to at least just ask.
Sure.
Okay. Any other questions for Mark? Okay. Council members, Dr. Cross, you got any comments?
No.
Mr. Sween?
I do. I just want to make a comment that Sunday, Erath County lost a great citizen. Catherine Prater passed Sunday morning, and her funeral was today. She was a great lady that assisted Erath County, Stephenville, Texas in particular, and I wanted to recognize that her passing and the loss we'll have in this community.
Mr. Nix? Mr. Evans?
I would like to take a personal moment. As most of you know, I've been very involved with Stephenville Lions Club for many years. We're in partnership with Project Hope in the Angel Tree program. We got all the angels placed in businesses yesterday. Got about 150 kids that need the community's help. But those angels, if you'll permit me, Mayor, are at Texas Bank, Techstar Ford, Patterson Insurance, FMC, Cowboy Capital Insurance, Hayden Real Estate, and First Financial Bank. Thank you for
Okay.
for
Yeah, that's great. This is a great cause, especially this time of year. All right, with that, I will call us into executive session in compliance with the provisions of the Texas Open Meetings Law, Subchapter D, Government Code, in accordance with Section 551.072, deliberations about real property.